Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the full card of fights for UFC Fight Night, Evloev versus Murphy. So, without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the card. So in our first fight, we have in the women's bantamweight division, we got Melissa Mullins versus Luana Carolina. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go low confidence, Luana Carolina to beat Melissa Mullins. Yeah, I feel like Carolina has a pretty solid track record at beating grapplers around. Well, yeah. I feel like 125 was her better weight class. 35 does give me concerns. Out of the way, this concerns. Not like Carolina's some super trustworthy, high-level, come-through fighter. So, it is what it is. But she has a pretty good track record against grapplers. Obviously coming off a loss to a grappler, but that was a much larger, much more talented bantamweight. I feel like Mullins isn't really a big bantamweight. She gets dropped pretty much every single fight. Striking is extremely questionable, but she has a lot of heart, a lot of tenacity. She'll try to push forward and have grappling success. But her last fight, also for Mullins, was not a great showing of herself. Like she was getting outstruck. I think she lost one she had already beat prior and struggled to get takedown, struggled to grapple. Just looked terrible her last fight. But yeah, I go down to Carolina here. Even though she's the former flyweight here, I think she's the bigger woman here. Let's see the teletape to be sure of that. Carolina's actually 2 years younger. She has far more UFC experience. They're the same height, but Carolina will have her inch of reach, and I think she'll look 3 inches taller and look like she'll have 3 inches of reach as well. I'm not saying they'll actually have that, but it will look like that because Mullins kind of leans over, hunches over. Carolina fights very long. Some fighters say stats this, say stats that, but when you see them when they fight, they fight to a certain way, or they aren't as tall as they say they are. But yeah, I think Carolina should be able to address the grappling consistently through this one. And just be the more consistent striker throughout here. Landing clean shots. I can see her even dropping Mullins a couple times in this fight. But I see Carolina winning this decision. I do think it's going to be a close competitive fight, but Carolina doing the more significant damage and minimizing the grappling. Yeah, minimizing the grappling success of Mullins in this one. So in this one, I got Luana Carolina via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the women's strawweight division, we got Chanel Dyer versus Ravina Oliveira. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go average confidence Chanel Dyer to beat Ravina Oliveira. So yeah, Oliveira is a solid talent, but don't really feel like she put the full work in, to be honest. She didn't put the full work in. They kind of gave her a bunch of cans and just drew her into the UFC and it looks the part. Like she can strike a little bit, like she can grapple a little bit, but just can't do it at a UFC level. She can do it competently, but she can't do it at a level where, I can win with my striking at this level. I can win with my grappling at this level. I can win by putting it all together at this level. Like she just hasn't really, she just kind of rushed to this level and never really developed her skills as much as they should. And again, it looks the part of that. So I got Chanel Dyer here again, average confidence to beat Ravina Oliveira. I feel like Chanel Dyer is just a much more tested fighter, much sharper fighter. I think she should be able to address the grappling pretty easily, and I think there's a huge striking advantage. There's a huge talent, huge experience advantage for Dyer here. And I see her beating Oliveira to a pretty clean, clear decision here. Just again, addressing grappling and now striking her pretty thoroughly. So in this one, I got Chanel Dyer via decision. Now to the next fight we have in the lightweight division, we got Shamrock versus Abdul Karim Al-Selwady. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go low confidence Shamrock to beat Abdul Karim Al-Selwady. Yeah, Selwady has took some time off, and I feel like his last fight, not exactly the same exact matchup, but roughly speaking, broadly speaking, I feel like he was better fighter his last matchup. He was just opponent was just bigger, stronger, and more powerful. Like Selwady was looking cleaner, more polished, looking great. Then he would feel some power from Louis Rajabov, and then all that momentum would just go straight out the window, or would shift the other way. So similar against Shamrock. Shamrock's a much bigger man here. He's been active. Selwady has not fought in 2 years or so. Shamrock's been active, training alongside what's his name, Patty Pimblett, and some other fighters. Some other young talented fighters as well, all with the same dreams, same goals, training day and day, and that's always a good breeding ground for success, in growth. I just feel like Selwady just has not been active, and he's going in with a matchup that he, roughly lost last time. It's not the same exact matchup, but similar thing. Shamrock's a very big lightweight. His technique may not be the greatest on the feet, but he does got some great kicks. He does got some heavy kicks to the body as well, some good knees. And again, he's big, and with that size and that mass comes power. And he's a pretty solid grappler. So what I've seen this one, I think Selwady can come out looking pretty good early. But once Shamrock starts to connect him, I start to see Selwady like just knees buckling. And the fight has really started to shift away from him just as it did in his last fight. And I'm looking at more so like Selwady, maybe being a little bit more consistent, maybe land a little bit more, but Shamrock landing harder when he does. Maybe, getting outstroked by like 5 strikes or so. Maybe up to the point of the finish. And then at that point, maybe Shamrock with ground and pound and stuff leading to the finish, maybe the submission. He probably ends up landing like 3 more strikes total or something. But, prior to the stoppage or the sequencing of the stoppage, Selwady just might have been a more busy, consistent fighter and more landing at a higher clip. But Shamrock, when he lands, is going to have the bigger effect. And then I see him kind of hurting Selwady in the second round and then follow him to the ground and submitting him in the second round. So in this one, I got Shamrock via second round submission. Now to our next fight, we have in the heavyweight division, we got Sutherland versus Brando Pericic. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go low confidence Brando Pericic to beat Sutherland. And yeah, I'm not high on either guy. Pericic, I still need to see something from him, but I feel like he is the more well-rounded fighter, so I'll lean him there. I do feel like he has more upside. I'm not very high on Sutherland to have a such a great UFC career. Maybe if you kind of just throw him there with guys that's just going to strike with him, and, lower level guys and stuff, and guys that are downtrending, that are just strikers, maybe his chances go up higher. But guys that's going to mix it up and can do it pretty well, I think he's going to struggle with those guys time and time again and lose time and time again. And yeah, Pericic, again, I have not seen enough from him, but I did see at least one fight in the UFC. And, he mixed it up in that fight. I think he'll be able to mix it up against Sutherland to decent success. Show good account from someone's feet, mix up the grappling, and ultimately ground and pound Sutherland out in the second round. So, in this one, I got Brando Pericic via second round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Antonio Trocoli versus Mantis Kandratavicius. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go average confidence, Mantis Kandratavicius to beat Antonio Trocoli. Oh yeah, Mantis is like a well-rounded enough fighter. He's hungry. Trocoli's clearly not. He needs to just go and retire and go to poker. Or, poker, modeling, real estate, something else. Because his heart's curly. Maybe be a BJJ coach. Even though he got submitted his last 2 fights and his stock probably went down as far as being a BJJ coach. It's a lot of guys that are BJJ coaches and, are actually pretty good BJJ coaches that really don't have the greatest track record in MMA with their submissions. They're, getting submitted. Their KD ratio as far as submissions versus getting submitted or whatever. Either way. So he'll probably have success there. But he clearly don't like he's really in it for the game anymore. He's not in it for the love of the game no more as far as MMA. Not really passionate about it. Kandratavicius clearly is very passionate. Well-rounded enough guy. I think he can address the grappling. And I definitely think he's a much more dangerous striker, the much more lethal striker, and obviously the much more hungry fighter here. I think he'll be able to address the grappling, put the pressure on Trocoli early, break him down, and I'll say first round TKO for Mantis Kandratavicius. So in this one, I got Mantis Kandratavicius via first round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the heavyweight division, we got Mario Pinto versus Felipe Franco. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go average confidence, Mario Pinto to beat Felipe Franco. So yeah, Franco is another one of these guys that just feel like they kind of rushed to the UFC. He's only 25 years old at heavyweight. Heavyweight, they got more not more malice, but they got more longevity at heavyweight. Or you can fight, or the prime of heavyweight kind of starts late. Like, prime of heavyweight starts like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I guess I'm gonna say I feel like prime kind of starts similarly in all weight classes, but I feel like the heavyweight prime extends, or it could be a little bit. Maybe heavyweight prime is like 35 to 43 or something. Other primes like welterweight might be 30 to 34. Lightweight prime might be 27 to 33 or something. But yeah. By the way, he's far from his prime. He rushed to the UFC way too soon. And we saw that in his Contender Series fight. He rushed to the UFC, or rushed to try to get in the UFC. And just came up short on the Contender Series. Come out aggressive. Striking didn't look as polished. Grappling was not confident in grappling. And they started getting out wrestled in that fight. And eventually he got submitted or TKO'd. I forget. But either way, he got finished, I think, in that fight. And yeah, it was just not a good look for him. Not going there with Mario Pinto, a young guy who, took the right steps. Shows a much more developed game. Better striking. Better IQ, and it's showing like Franco needs to take some more fights on the side before he comes to UFC. He jumped here way too quick. He fought a couple cans, and he's out like, yeah, now I'm ready for the UFC, and that's just not the right way to do it. I think Mario Pinto should be able to address the grappling, pick up partner's feet, and I say like a second round TKO for Mario Pinto here. I just think again it's the much better fighter overall. I think can out grapple Franco, but the smart way is defend the grappling from Franco, then just pick up partner's feet and put him away second round. So in this one, I got Mario Pinto via second round TKO. Now to our next fight we have in the featherweight division, we got Nathaniel Wood versus Losine Keita. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go low confidence Nathaniel Wood to beat Losine Keita. Yeah. Keita's amazing talent, explosive, athletic, dynamic, hits very hard, solid fighter, solid skills. But I do think this is a big step up. Nathaniel Wood is a guy that's, talented as well, has great career at bantamweight, has established himself as a great featherweight as well. I'm not going to say great, but he established himself as a solid featherweight as well at the UFC level. Keita, I feel like he hasn't really fought nobody at UFC level yet. He has some decent wins, so he shows to be UFC level, but he has not really fought anyone UFC level to really, check that yet. And Wood has a wealth of experience in there. He's still a young enough guy. It's not like Wood is just washed veteran. Wood is 32 years old, so it's like kind of smack dab in his prime. Keita like 28, still yet to really enter his prime or kind of the first wave of his prime. And he hasn't really fought UFC level yet. And I think that's what's going to come down to. I think what's going to come down to Wood's experience to, make adjustments in this fight. Keita going to come out hard, probably explosive. Maybe come out leading early, but Wood's going to be to make those little adjustments. Maybe you better catch Keita when Keita's swinging wide, and maybe you clip Keita at points. Maybe you score takedowns at points. Just find ways to drink clock. Maybe Keita slows down and Wood is able to pick it up at certain points. Again, just that experience at a high level. Being a high level fighter and having fights against other high level fighters for many years, training with high level guys. And Keita, again, this has not had that experience. And Wood is definitely a guy that will give you that test and can definitely, give you that loss if you're, not quite there yet. But Keita could definitely have a promising career in the UFC, but I do think that Wood will, give him a little bit of a lesson, give him a loss in his debut, and beat him by decision. It could be like a split decision type fight, but expecting a great fight from both, but I think Wood's experience is going to be the X factor here. So, in this one, I have Nathaniel Wood via decision. Now, to our next fight, we have in the lightweight division, we got Mason Jones versus Axel Sola. And how do I feel about this one is I'll go low confidence Axel Sola to beat Mason Jones. Mason Jones is a solid fighter. He'll bring a lot of intensity here, a lot of toughness. But I do think Axel Sola is the more diverse fighter. I think he'll be mixing the grappling a little bit to a little bit of success there. And also, I think the big thing will be his length and his size and his kicks. I feel like he's going to use his kicks to maximize his range. Jones has not really been known for defense for the most part. He's tough, but he's not known for defense. And to cover that, I feel like he's going to eat a lot of shots coming in, and that's going to equal damage, equal points. So he's going to have to eat shots just to cover that range. Axel is going to catch him with shots coming in, catch him with shots on the inside a little bit, maybe clinch him up, put him against the cage, and again, try to rinse and repeat that, snipe him a little bit with his kicks at distance, land clean shots at range, use that height, use that length, and the diversity of his strikes. And try to build up a striking lead. And when Jones does get on the inside, try to limit the time where Jones just has free hands to throw shots with power. Limit those opportunities. Limit those spaces of time. And I think he beats him by decision. I think it's gonna be a good scrap, close fight. But Sola just gonna be, I feel like, have the better game plan, and he's gonna be able to follow his game plan better and dictate the pace of this fight better. But nonetheless, close fight overall. Two solid guys. I just think Axel Sola is going to be a little bit more solid here. And I think he wins by decision. So, in this one, I have Axel Sola via decision. Now, to our next fight, we have in the featherweight division, we got Curtis Campbell versus Danny Silva. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go low confidence Danny Silva to beat Curtis Campbell. I think Campbell's a solid fighter, but I just feel like Danny Silva's more technical in my opinion. I feel like Campbell's, he's a solid technical fighter, but I think Silva should be able to address the grappling here, maybe even out-grapple here. I feel like the main advantage Campbell will have here is aggression. I feel like Silva, is a very talented fighter. I think he has a cleaner offense, the cleaner defense, but it's kind of his activity is his weakness. But I think he will be active. I'm not going to say active. He still won't be as active, but that's going to make this fight close, probably like a split decision type fight. But I think he'll land the flusher shots. I think he'll be able to mix and takedowns at time to throw Campbell off and get some control time in there. I think he'll land the cleaner, flusher shots. Campbell probably still land more because he'll just be the busier fighter. Might land 10 more strikes. Might land 5, 10, 15 more strikes, which is, again, makes it kind of controversial. But I feel like Silva's going to land the heavier shots, the flusher, cleaner shots. Whereas Campbell shots, the majority of shots probably ain't going to be landing that flush. But he's going to be the busier guy. But I think Silva is going to be able to be the more cleaner, accurate guy here and land flusher and do a better job at dictating the fight. Even though he won't be as active, he'll be more successful at what he's doing and be at an edge of decision over Curtis Campbell here. So, in this one, I got Danny Silva via decision. Now, to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, we got Roman Dolidze versus Christian Leroy Duncan. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go average confidence Christian Leroy Duncan to beat Roman Dolidze. So, Christian Leroy Duncan, his kryptonite so far in the UFC has been guys that just, more composed, more experienced MMA strikers than him. Like that, it really has been really grappling so much. It's really been striking and experience. So Dolidze striking has always looked rough. He at times he could throw volume, but it's never really clean, consistent striking. His takedown offense has never really been clean either. So it's gonna be like, some ugly takedown attempts, and it's gonna be some ugly striking attempts. He has some success here and there with some stuff, but ultimately I think Christian Leroy Duncan will do a good job of addressing and grappling. As a matter of fact, do a great job of addressing and grappling. When Dolidze comes in swinging wild, maybe trying to clinch, trying to get body locks, Leroy Duncan will do a good job of cut him up with elbows. I see Duncan opening up Dolidze's face in all types of ways, having him leaking throughout this fight, digging with knees to the body, landing heavy kicks to the body. It's really chewing Dolidze up this fight, and Dolidze just really struggling to find, any consistency in this fight where Duncan's going to find consistency. Like, he's going to find his tone, he's going to find his opening, he's going to find his pace, he's going to find that consistency early, and I think he's going to maintain that consistency. But, Dolidze will be tough. I think he just goes the full 15, but I think it's going to be a pretty clear fight to score for Leroy Duncan after 15 minutes. With Duncan, again, addressing and grappling, probably holding Dolidze to maybe, I'm going to say one takedown or less. And under one takedown or less. And again, it's chewing him up on the feet, chewing him up in the clinch, and beating him by decision here. So in this one, I got Christian Leroy Duncan via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the light heavyweight division, we got Baraniewski versus Austin Lane. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go average confidence, Baraniewski to beat Austin Lane. And Lane, Chinez was already not good at heavyweight. Now he's trying to come himself down to 205. You're like a 6'6", 275-pound former NFL player. And you're pushing 40 years old. Now you're trying to cut weight when you already have a 10 at heavyweight. So this is all to set him up to get knocked out. And regardless if this was a heavyweight or light heavyweight, I think the same outcome will be the same. But him draining himself or trying to drain himself is only going to make it worse. Again, Baraniewski is a guy with a judo background. He can address the grappling the lane. Maybe even toss Lane on his head. Maybe even submit Lane. But I see him just knocking Lane out. Baraniewski likes to bang. He's going to bang. He's going to touch Lane's even glassier chin now and put him out in the first round. Lane's probably come out, try to, close the gap. And also Lane going to be a lot slower at light heavyweight. Like, if he wasn't the fastest guy at heavyweight, now he's going to be a drained guy and look like a slow lurch, an even slower lurch at light heavyweight. He's going to be a drained, sucked out lima bean just trying to, hold on to something. It's just going to look, it's not going to be a good sight for Lane and Lane backers. I just think, I don't know what Lane's going to try to do. Going to try to impose a size, try to cover that distance, probably just continue to walk in the shots. And eventually I see him get hit with one big shot, and it's like a one-hitter quitter, face planting, going to sleep in the first round, probably within the first 2 minutes. So in this one, I got Baraniewski via first round TKO. Now to our next fight we have in the welterweight division, we got Michael Page versus Sam Patterson. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go average confidence, Michael Page to beat Sam Patterson. Sam Patterson's amazing talent, but this is a massive step up. Michael Page could be a top 10 or at the very least top 13 welterweight right now. And I think he was like a top 6, top 7 middleweight, or he still currently is. So Michael Page is that level of talent. Like, very skilled. And I feel like he probably already trained with Patterson many times. And I feel like he's probably, and not even probably, he has fought several guys with similar builds and styles to Sam Patterson before in Bellator and whatnot. I feel like he's fought like at least two guys or 3 guys like this before. And I just think Page still be too fast, too sharp. Patterson doesn't really have much defense. Patterson will have, a significant grappling advantage if he could use that, but it's not like Sam Patterson's an exceptional offensive takedown guy. And again, I just think Page will be too fast, too sharp, and going to kind of play with. He's going to play smart. He's not going to try to rush him too much early because that's how you get taken down. But he's going to draw it out of Patterson, walk Patterson into kicks, walk Patterson into punches, walk him to knees, spinning back kicks, step aside kicks, and it's had Patterson, pretty much chasing a ghost out there. And then in the second round, the ghost going to come to him, come straight down the line, touch him on the chin, follow-up shots to put him out in the early mid stage of the second round. So in this one, I got Michael Page via second round TKO. Now for our next fight we have in the featherweight division, we got Luke Riley versus Michael Aswell Jr. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go low confidence, Luke Riley to beat Michael Aswell Jr. I think Aswell Jr. is a very solid fighter. So is Riley. I think Aswell will probably be the cleaner, more technical guy throughout. But I just think Riley's going to have the bigger impacts with the shots. I feel like I can see Riley connect on Aswell Jr. and drop him a couple times in this fight, or at least drop him once in this fight. Maybe stun him a couple times, maybe drop him once or twice in this one. or again stunning him a couple times, maybe dropping him once in this one. But the thing is, Riley's shots is gonna have bigger impact in this fight, and I see Riley having a little bit of grappling success here as well. And but yeah, the main point is I just think Aswell might be the more cleaner guy here technically overall, but Riley just gonna be the dog here, kind of, and the guy that has the hammer more so. Like when his shots have a bigger impact, and it's also gonna help that the crowd's gonna be on the side. So when he lands these big impacts, the crowd will probably be wooing and eyeing and stuff, and whatever British people do or English people do, and yeah. So I think Riley's gonna have the bigger impacts, whether it be he's gonna have those bigger impacts. The bigger he's gonna leave the bigger pictures in people's heads. So landing the bigger shots, having the bigger effect off his shots, and winning the positional battle if they do grappling changes do with Sue, so stuff like that. And that's everything like Aswell might be a little bit more consistent, but Riley's gonna have bigger impacts when he does land, when he does get takedowns, when he does go for submission attempts, if he does go for ground and pound, everything's gonna be like he's gonna have more power behind what he's doing. So yeah, that's what it is. Close fight, but Riley just having the bigger impacts, the bigger moments, and that's what's gonna win him the fight. So in this one, I got Luke Riley via decision. Now to our main event, we have in the featherweight division, we got Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go low confidence Lerone Murphy to beat Movsar Evloev. So firstly, I will say Movsar Evloev is the rightful favorite. So don't be all like, why are you picking him? Why are you picking? I'm picking him. I'm picking Murphy because I want to pick Murphy. I believe Murphy gonna win this one. I believe so. I'm not saying, oh, Evloev ain't this, ain't that. Great fighter. Should be the favorite, rightful favorite. Maybe not his bigger favorite is what I'm saying. I don't think he should be his bigger favorite. I think he should be like minus 150, minus 170. I don't think it should be in the 200s. That's why I don't think. I don't think it should be in 200s. I don't think it should be 300s. I think minus 150, minus 170. I think that's where it should be at. But yeah, so you're picking Evloev, good for you. I think he's the right favorite, but I'm going Murphy. I think Murphy's going to win this one. I think he could do a good job of addressing the wrestling here. I think he'll come in well trained to address the wrestling of Evloev. Not to say that he'll completely shut it down. I think he will get taken down multiple times, maybe even a lot of times. But I think he'll do a good job of getting back to his feet. And I think he'll be the guy consistently dealing more damage, landing knees to the chest, getting some step knees, maybe when Evloev, time Evloev's level change. I don't feel like Evloev really sets up his takedowns that well consistently. There are moments when Evloev's setups for his takedowns are real smooth. But for the most part, I feel like Evloev's takedown setups are pretty telegraphable, and I feel like Murphy can catch him with some knees to the chest, and sometimes slip that little knee up to the chin and kind of buckle Evloev at times. Start to chew up his legs with leg kicks. And I don't feel like Murphy in this fight, he's never really had a pretty fight when you look at his UFC career. He's never really had that really pretty fight too much. It's like he has had pretty finishes, but his fights have never really been pretty. I don't think he's expecting a pretty fight. He's training for ugly. He's probably training the best he ever trained because he wanted that title fight. This is a fight that Topuria didn't take. This is a fight that Volkanovski didn't take. So this is a big fight. It's really like an unofficial title fight if we've been honest. Unofficial. Even though Volk is the rightful champion, but it's like unofficial title. So I think he'll come in game, footwork on point. I think he'll be able to address the wrestling pretty well. Still give a lot of takedowns, but he's gonna do a good job. What's most important is not that you defend every single takedown. What's most important is how you react to the takedowns. I think he'll react well, stay calm, composed. Work back to his feet well. Get up just about every single time that he gets taken down in a decent amount of time. That's gonna wear on the gas tank of Evloev. Murphy's chopping legs gonna wear on Evloev. The dig into the body with knees and hooks to the body, and kicks to the body, and just again they start taking away his will, start taking away his mobility. Then Evloev start to get more telegraphed. He's gonna start to land the flashier strikes. I think it's gonna be like a real good fight through 25 minutes. Could even still end up being a split decision type fight. I do see go the distance, but I think Murphy will do a good job of minimizing the damage that Evloev does, minimizing the control time, and then just being a more effective striker, dealing the majority of the damage, especially the significant damage. And maybe after the fight over, Murphy probably looking like he just went through a very great gym session, good sweat going on him. Definitely tired, definitely exhausted. But Evloev wearing most of the damage, and again Murphy dealing most of the damage here. With Evloev again, main path seems like he want to be control more so, but he's not really going to have effective control and effective ground and pound and effectively chasing the submissions or anything like that, or effectively chasing the finishes here. Whereas Murphy, that's what he's going to be looking to do, and I feel like I can see Murphy dropping Evloev at times in this fight. But very competitive scrap. But again, I think Murphy addresses the wrestling pretty well and deals the majority of the damage this one. And I think he wins a very close decision against a very game Movsar Evloev here. So in this one, I got Lerone Murphy via decision. And so that concludes my fight predictions for the full card of fights for UFC Fight Night Evloev versus Murphy. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.